Hi all, welcome to Public Cloud Design Tips and Tricks again. So today's topic is the part 2 of Azure Managed Grafana. So few weeks back we have already covered the first part of Azure Managed Grafana, and today we'll be covering the rest of the things. So background is again the same, a deep dive into Azure Managed Grafana. Uh, so today let's start with the topic service availability. So Azure Managed Grafana instance is the standard tier is hosted on a dedicated set of virtual machines. Two VMs are deployed to provide redundancy. A network load balancer it's responsible to distribute the requests among the instances or the servers, and Grafana servers are connected to a common database that stores the configuration and other persistence data for the entire managed Grafana ecosystems. Okay, so if you see the diagram, then you can easily correlate that there is a load balancer that's routing traffic into two available instances and a common database where all the metadata informations are getting stored. So this is a highly available architecture that the managed environment will provide you. Now coming to the zone redundancy part. So when a zone redundancy is enabled with Grafana, then VMs are spread across availability zones, which is the fundamental of zone redundancy, and the load balancer and database are also configured for the availability zones. Okay. Now, if one of the zones gets outage, then from a consumer perspective, no user action is required. The impacted Grafana instance will be rebalanced to a healthy zone automatically. Okay, and the managed Grafana service will attempt to heal the affected instances during zone recovery. So that is how it works behind the scene for the zone redundancy topology. Now coming to the data encryption is Azure Managed Grafana stores data in the following services. First of all, so resource provider related system metadata information is stored in Azure Cosmos DB, and Grafana instance user related data that is being stored uh, in PostgreSQL. So you can segregate the data type into two part. One is resource provider related information, and then other one is the user metadata informations. Okay, in Cosmos DB, PostgreSQL separately. Now, data stored in both Cosmos DB and PostgreSQL, those are encrypted at data at rest level on the storage device and in transport over network. Okay, so these are so both the data at rest and at the communication level data gets encrypted. Now, what is server-side encryption here? The encryption model used by managed Grafana is the server-side encryption model with a service managed key. Okay, and all key management such as key provisioning, rotation, and backups, the lifecycle managements are all Microsoft managed in managed Grafana architecture. Coming to the networking, so managed Grafana is a Microsoft managed product basically, and it operates within Microsoft network boundary. Okay, so that is where it gets operated, and there are few considerations that can be considered while working with Grafana. Okay, you can also follow the Microsoft link and where you can log in into your subscription, free subscription, and then you can have a look into the different aspects of managed Grafana. Okay, so by default, the public access is enabled in Grafana, and it can be disabled to restrict or limit the traffic to private access. Okay, so you go to the networking section and you can disable the public access default checkbox. So when a public access is disabled, then the other way of connecting to managed Grafana is using a private endpoint. Okay, so private endpoint again conceptually it works in the private boundary of the consumer, and it basically, like uh, it assigns a private IP for your connectivity. Okay, so that is how it works. There is another concept in managed Grafana is deterministic outbound IP. So what is that one? And this is basically used when you are connecting different IP spaces or different services running in different IP spaces from managed Grafana. Okay, it can be anything. Okay, so this can be provided as an option when the resource gets created. So when you create managed Grafana, then you will have an options where you can enable this particular deterministic IPs where you can provide the destinations IPs to connect to basically. Okay. Uh, I think by default it is disabled, but if you want to enable it to connect to a different service with IP information, then you can enable it at a later stage. Okay. Now we discussed about managed private endpoints. So basically, consumer if they wants to connect to services or the destinations using private topology, then you can use managed private endpoints. And managed private endpoints can be used to connect to destinations data sources privately. So the data sources that managed Grafana supports internally that you can connect using managed private endpoint. And again, we already discussed it ensures the network security when you are connecting from managed Grafana to the destination sources. Okay. Now, the supported databases or supported data sources that basically managed Grafana supports are listed here. Uh, Cosmos DB it supports Azure Data Explorer, Log Analytics Workspaces. These are all different services that managed Grafana internally supports. Okay, so this is a little bit more about when you are connecting to a data source. So this you can very well go to your subscription and start looking into it. Where so if you go when you create a managed Grafana resource within your resource group, then in the left panel there is a networking section where you can enable managed private endpoint. So the network connectivity that what we already discussed, like you can disable the public access, then you have options for private access and managed private endpoint. And then if you go to managed private endpoint, then you can connect to different data sources that is being supported within managed Grafana. So you can go through these steps basically. Okay, now coming to the identity and access part is uh, mm, Azure Managed Grafana needs permission to access data sources to process the data. So we already discussed the network connectivity using managed private endpoint. But once that is established, then there is a access based mechanism where you can start using different identity. And the default one is system assigned managed identity. So Grafana can access data sources using a system managed identity or a service principal. Okay. So system assigned managed identity is kind of a technical identity, and that is provided by Entra ID or Azure Active Directory. It's a default authentication method provided to all users who have owner or user access administration role for the subscription where managed Grafana is running. So that this is very important. So basically, where you create managed Grafana is within a subscription and resource group basically. So you have to remember that you have owner or user access administration role in that subscription basically, where you can use the system managed identity to connect to different destination systems from managed Grafana, and that you can get it from this particular uh, section of managed Grafana where you have deployed your Grafana. Okay, so in the identity. So system and assign managed identity is set to on here. So if you see here, there is a checkbox, and that is on here. And the role assignments to this identity with monitoring reader role on target subscription is checked by default. Okay. So here these are the default settings. Let's say if you uncheck this particular checkbox, okay, then you should be manually updated using the add button. So there is a manual option where you just click the add button, and then you can manually do that if it is not checked or unchecked, let's say. Okay. So here, if you see in the add button, then there is a include myself box is already checked. Okay, that means you are by default added, but you can also add more users. Okay, and can provide roles to those user as well, by clicking the add button. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Yeah. Now let's discuss about what will happen if the managed identity is off here. Okay. So the first one is on, we have discussed. Now let's say it is off. So if the managed identity option is off here, then add role assignment to this identity with monitoring reader role on the target subscription is automatically unchecked or grayed out, you can say. Okay. Under Grafana administration role, if you have the owner or user access administration role for the subscription, the box include myself is checked by default. We discussed that also. Optionally, you can add a grant add to grant Grafana administration role to more members. Okay, so if you do not have the necessary role, you won't be able to manage Grafana access rights yourself. Okay, so this is what will happen when your system managed identity option is off. Okay, now if the managed identity option is off, add role assignment to this identity with monitoring reader role on target subscription is automatically grayed out. We already discussed. Now under Grafana administration role, if you have the owner or user access administration role of the subscription, the box include myself is checked by default. That also we discussed. Optionally also you can add like Grafana administration role to more members. That also we discussed. Now using role assignments in IAM, user and groups can be given permission to access managed Grafana. Okay, so this is more about different uh, options to deal with access and identity within managed Grafana to connect to the target resources or target subscription. Okay, so these are all things that I wanted to discuss with you. So what you can do, you can again you can uh, mm, refer this link from Microsoft. But more to that, once you have gone through this, you can start using your own subscription and start creating Grafana instances, and then you start creating different data sources, supported data sources, and start connecting to those. Okay, so while you connect to those, then you can traverse through different options that we have already discussed, or different uh, aspects of using Grafana. Networking, you can easily set up public access, you can disable, create, manage private endpoint, that you can do. uh, After that you can use that system managed identity or identity option to access to different sources. So those you can easily try out yourself. Okay, so please have a look into those aspects practically. And that's it for today. Thank you and have a good day.